Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. This is episode number 33. Thank you for tuning in to YouTube and watching us or listening to us on iTunes and Google Play and downloading us now in 17 countries. You know, one of the great things about this show is catching up with some friends who are doing well and get their story a little bit and find out more about them because they've made major contributions to horse racing. One of those is Centennial Farm. It was started by Mr. Donald Little back in 1982. It is a very well-known and respected racing, breeding, and racing partnership organization. His son, Don Little Jr., has been in charge and is coming off a big win with Preservationist in the Grade 1 Woodward Stakes over the weekend, and many horses they've had success with over the years, including Colonial Affair, Wicked Strong, Lil's Lad, I'm going to miss somebody, Rubiano, King Cugat, and it goes on and on. Basically, 140 graded stakes they've won or placed at Centennial Farms. And joining us now is Don Little Jr. Don, welcome into the show.
Great to be here, Kay, and always a pleasure.
Congratulations. That was a nice win for Preservationist over the weekend.
I would say it was probably one of the gutsiest, if not the gutsiest, performances of a horse I've ever seen, especially in person. And I've seen some comments on Twitter and Facebook that, you know, it could very well be considered the race of the year if it comes down to it.
Yeah, I think right now it is the race of the year. At this moment, you know, who knows what's ahead? Maybe the Jockey Club Gold, maybe in the Jockey Club Gold Cup there'll be another big race for him.
Well, that would be nice. Of course, you mentioned Colonial Affair, and he was victorious in that race. And let's see, 1994, and I actually was visiting my mother this morning and catching up on some things since I've been away from Saratoga, and sure enough, that trophy is sitting on the mantelpiece in the kitchen.
That's perfect. That's the perfect spot.
It gave us a little bit of a motivation, but you know, that's all up to Jimmy and his crew, and because they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, trainer Jimmy Jerkins. You know, we talk about family business. Of course, his father, Alan, the legendary trainer himself, and you're carrying on the family business that your dad started with Centennial Farms, and people probably said, "Hey, who are these Boston guys?" I'm talking about like 1982. I don't know. Maybe they said 82. You Boston guys, you're not in Kentucky. You're not in Maryland. You're not down here in this horse racing country. What's going on with you New Englanders?
Well, I think, you know, that's very true because, as you well know, that the old Kentucky Hard Boot Network was a little bit, you know, tough to sort of break into, but especially being from New England. But, you know, a lot of it goes back to, you know, our roots. And, you know, my grandmother rode steeplechase horses way back when, and Dad had his first racehorse when he was 16. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at this and the people involved with us now, and then even back to the people that when Dad started, a lot of it had to do with our polo connections.
Right.
You know, Dad played polo when he was younger. He was president of the United States Polo Association. And I was playing, I played professionally for many years. Many other family members are still competing. But, you know, when Dad started, he knew Will Farish. He knew, you know, Alan Jerkins played polo. So Dr. Carr, who selects all these great horses for us, was playing polo in Aiken, South Carolina. And so that's sort of where, you know, where it all began. And, you know, I happened to be on another show this morning with Steve Vick, and one thing that I mentioned, that you mentioned how we carry it on from our father's tradition, both Jimmy and I, is, you know, a lot of family businesses aren't fortunate to have that happen. Some of them blow up. There's differences of opinions, and it's kind of a neat thing to say that we're carrying it on, and quite successfully, I would say.
Oh, indeed, and you know, I remember Colonial Affair. This is not the first time I heard of Centennial Farms, but you know, obviously, you win one of the Triple Crown races. People know automatically. I mean, they learn quickly, at least. I'll say who you are, what you're about, and all that. I don't know if there was one moment or turning point for Centennial Farms or not, Don.
Well, I mean, I think that was one of the major turning points that started, you know, where we are now, because prior to that, and Dad being in the investment business, the whole goal when we started Centennial, or he started Centennial, is that Centennial was more of an investment vehicle than anything. But it was a way to incorporate his love for horse racing into that realm, because limited partnerships back in the 80s was one of the most attractive investment vehicles for tax purposes.
Right.
And people didn't really care what the underlying asset was at the time. So Dad saw an opportunity. So, well, I'm going to take some of my Wall Street buddies, we actually formed a broker-dealer called the Centennial Group, and sold it as licensed securities. And we had people at one point, I think we at one point had over 600 clients. Rubiano's partnership, which was a limited partnership back then, had 65 people in it.
Right.
And most of Rubiano was just one colt out of a group of 5, and the other ones were all fillies. And so we all mostly were fillies to help keep the residual value. And then when the tax laws changed, good timing on my part, that's when I got involved. Tax laws changed in 86, and I got involved in 87. That was really good.
timing, the key, isn't it?
It was awesome. I said, well, there's only way to go up from here, and I really wanted to do it. And my father said, "Are you sure?" Because it was very difficult. And we kind of had a meeting with Dad and Dr. Carr, and how are we going to keep the train rolling? And I said, what do people want? They want to win the big races. They want to win a Triple Crown race. They want a classic race, and nothing against fillies, but they want to hit the home run, and let's market it that way. And Colonial Affair was the first general partnership with colts that we did, and we went to horse people, saying, we know you like the business. Take a little bit of your horse budget and participate with us. And that's how it started with the colts, and it evolved into what it is today. And really, that's what we focus on, buying well-bred colts that have a pedigree if they're successful. Stallion Station in Kentucky will want to stand them. And over the last 29 years, we've campaigned a stakes horse in every year except for 6. And in those years, 4 of those years, we bred a stakes winner indirectly. I mean, one of our stallions, had produced stakes winners.
Talking with Don.
So that's pretty good for buying 6 horses a year.
Don, you're doing pretty well, man. I mean, you seem to be doing pretty well. I mean, you got a horse racing business. Talking with Don Little Jr., the co-owner and president of Centennial Farms. You got a business that's been going since 1982. There's a lot of businesses, forget horse racing, 1982 till now, a successful business is a pretty tough deal, especially as you mentioned with, changing tax structures, et cetera, like that for the horse racing business. I mean, it is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, but it's been fun. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with everybody that's involved. Dr. Carr, Paula Parsons, who runs the farm in Virginia, Jimmy, the true horse people. This is what we do, and this is what we enjoy, and this is our life, and we do what it takes to work together and make it all happen. And the partners, silent partners that they may be, are very key, and we do our best to make it fun and enjoyable, and to have the longevity in the business. It's in your blood, and all the people that get involved with us on the partner side, they're educated from the beginning, and they can see the love and the passion of this business that we all have, and it was in the family, and my as you well know, my aunt Patricia Mosley and her husband Jim, Uncle Jim, who passed away some time ago, they had Arbor Stables and Topsider, and a very good friend, my family member, and cousin Adam Snow, who's a professional player. You've worked with him numerous times, and you can tell by him his passion for horses, and it's in our blood.
And it's interesting is that you made your mark with the colts with Colonial Affair, who was ridden by the only female to ever win a Triple Crown race, Julie Crone.
Yeah, she's quite something. We still stay in touch. We had our 25th Belmont reunion anniversary last year. She was at Belmont, and we had a big dinner at the Garden City Hotel. And of course, she was bopping around Belmont Park on Belmont Day. She's real easy to keep under control.
Yeah,
a leash on, which
we know Julie. Yes,
she's quite flamboyant, and she just had a jockey school actually in Saratoga this summer.
Yeah, she did real well with that.
Yeah, and we sponsored one of the the kids, and it was a great success. And it's such a unique business. The people that you meet and the friendships that you grow and build, and I would say that we've scaled it down to I think we have something like just around 90 clients or partners, and I can honestly say every one of them are friends of mine. And we're like-minded. We know the risk. We enjoy the times we spend together, and memories that are created, and the pictures on the walls. It's you can't really explain it until you're involved in it.
Right.
And it's a way to become involved. I would say we're a little bit more exclusive than others. Our price point's a little higher, but you're talking to me. I mean, the people, I have one assistant, Julie Titone, who's been in the business. She's been with Centennial for 16 years, but her husband had some horses at Suffolk, and, she worked for the HBPA at Massachusetts here while Suffolk and Rockingham was in full swing. And so it's a neat, business to be involved in.
Is racing partnerships now, talking with Don Little Jr. of Centennial Farms, because you guys were on the cutting edge. Your dad, when he started Centennial back in 1982, I mean, there weren't a lot of partnerships. It was still a lot of farms, a lot of individuals that were the powerhouse players. That's changed dramatically. We actually had Wayne Lucas on the show several weeks ago, and he said that's the biggest change that he's noticed since he's been training is racing partnerships now. How it's really changed the game, where it's not just that one guy or one farm that can control the situation of having the best horses.
No, I mean, it has changed. And, again, it goes back to it's an expensive, sport, especially to participate at the high end. Expenses are continuing to rise. So it's a lot easier to handle and deal with and defeat, if you will, with some friends. And, the neat thing about it is last year was the first year they did it at the Racing Museum in Saratoga. They had a night called Syndicate Night, and there were 8 different partnership groups there. And it was pretty small in terms of attendance, but the people there were qualified, I would say. And it was unique because every person that attended was able to go to each partnership group and chat, and every person that came to our table or booth, it was interesting that their response was, every single partnership group here that we've spoken to is different.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like anything in life. You do your due diligence, you do your research, you talk to the people involved, because this is something that, if you're going to participate, you kind of want to know the principles of the company and how it's working. And they said everybody's different. The price points are different. Some are one horse, some are multiple horses. Some are claiming partnerships. Now they have these fan groups that you can get in for $100, and that's great for racing because you never know where the next person that's going to be an owner is going to come from, and so you just got to be out there and visible, and there's many opportunities to get involved in this sport through partnerships at all different levels and price points.
Daniel, one thing that I'm curious about now is the racing. The money out there is better than it's ever been. And, we've got some of these, like the Saudi race is going to be coming up, and the Pegasus, and, of course, still Dubai. And, $1 million races are not uncommon now. I remember when it first started, 30-some years ago, was a big deal. Now you expect that. However, the foal crop is less than half of what it was 30 years ago. And there are some places, and we talked about this earlier in the show, like Chad Brown winning the trifecta with his 3 horses, the only ones in it at Saratoga. I mean, I'm just curious. It would seem to be at a premium right now to even get a horse to the racetrack. I don't know why there are fewer horses being bred and running when there's more money at stake.
Well, I think, and I'd said earlier this morning on the other show that this was, I believe from what I've experienced over the years that the horse market and the horse business itself is very healthy right now. You hear complaints. I was in a meeting with the president and Ira David O'Rourke and a group of people in the Saratoga community, from real estate to restaurateurs to automobile dealers and owners and trainers at the beginning of the Saratoga season, which was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was brought up was, size of fields and difficult of races to be filled in the full crop. And I honestly believe, Kenny, that's, it's like anything in economics, supply and demand. When you put on whatever product it is, it's got to be a quality product. Mm-hmm. And, racing, I felt there was too many races, and cutting back in terms of number of days and focusing on better quality. I think you can do that now because there's a lot of retirement programs that are for racehorses now than there ever been. So mm-hmm. I don't think, they're getting quite busy, and you don't want to overfill those places. That, there are opportunities. But, of course, that means the price point of buying these horses is going to be higher. But that's good for everybody. From the way I look at it, my perspective is there's better horses out there, and the quality, looking at yearlings even, is better than it has been over the years in terms of physical makeup of the horses.
So if somebody calls, I was going to say, so somebody calls Don Little Jr. at Centennial Farms and says, mm-hmm. I want to get into your partnership. What should they kind of be expecting to at least, to open the door and get into it, Don?
Well, our price points, I would say the minimum on an individual horse. We do 2 types of partnerships. We do individual horses twice a year, and then we do a large partnership, which is coming up for the Keeneland sale, where we'll buy 4 or 5. But the individual horses, like the horse we bought at Saratoga, it's a Candy Ride colt that we paid $500,000 for. Mm-hmm. And the minimum in that one was $40,000.
Yeah.
Typically, the 1-horse partnership will be $25,000.
Right.
But that's and the way they're set up is that's a one-time investment, hopefully, mm-hmm. Because it covers all expenses through the horse's 2-year-old year. Hopefully, they'll be, make a start or 2. If they don't, people are responsible for their own pro rata share of the expenses going forward. Mm-hmm. And you know what you got after your middle of your 3-year-old year, what you're dealing with, whether or not it's worth continuing on or not.
Right.
Because we've been in existence for as long as we have, and relations and connections and reputation that we've created, aside from all of the thoroughbred aftercare programs, we've been able to create our own internal basic aftercare program. Most of the horses that end their racing career, we can place pretty easily, right. Which is a nice thing to have in our closet, if you will.
Let's talk about the polo world. Don Little Jr., world-class polo player that you were.
Yeah.
And you talked about your cousin Adam Snow, who's just one of the great guys I've ever worked with, and we do the we do the U.S. Open every year. And Adam's been so welcoming to me. I've enjoyed my polo experiences, and it started out. NBC put me on polo because I cover horse racing. So they figure right. A horse is a horse is a horse, right? Mm-hmm. And but it's been fun, and I really enjoy it, and I've learned some of the strategy by listening to Adam. And do you ever still get out there and just kind of have some fun with it, or is it still too competitive that you have to, it's like these basketball players. I got friends that used to play in the NBA. They have trouble. They can't get in a pickup game. The juices are still there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. I mean, first of all, it was I started at a young age. Dad played, and it was just there. Of course, I got on horses when I was in diapers, and it's such a unique sport. I was fortunate enough, athletic enough to be successful, where I was able to play internationally for many years, and I truly believe that helped in this business, in the racehorse business, in terms of connections and credibility on the horse side of it. But it's one of those things where people say, "Well, why did you quit?" I said, "Well, because the competitive juices in me, like you said, are there, but with being more involved in the racing game and the traveling and the time that I needed to make Centennial successful, I just couldn't do both." And I have to admit that I'm getting the itch. I mean, yes, I'm 58 years old, but it's like anything. It doesn't go away. And back to the retirement of racehorses, one of them, a horse by the name of Securitas, who actually won at Saratoga last year and had the fastest mile and an eighth up until the Traverse, I think. Up until the Jim Dandy or the Whitney, I forget which one. He's at home here in Massachusetts, and he's just about sound enough to where we can get on him, and I think I'm going to see if he can handle a mallet swinging around his head and see if I can get out there and hit the ball around, just to, get the juices flowing again, just to have a little fun. And it never really goes away. And of course, I won't be competing in the U.S. Open anytime soon. But Adam was able to do that for many years, and he actually was up here in Boston this summer playing, and it was nice to see him back at his roots. And I remember when I was younger, and I'm sure he's told you that he learned a lot from me, and when he started, and his breakthrough was in Saratoga when they were playing polo up there.
Yeah, he has, and we talked a lot about horse racing and about the polo ponies. Watching them, they change the leads and things. I've kind of learned it's and they're running it incredible. They're running side by. I'm not telling you this, that, but they're running side by side most times, and they're sprinting down there. And what I like is the change when you guys change horses at the end in a polo match. It's like a hockey. To me, it's like a hockey line. You jump off one, you jump on another.
Yeah, no, that actually when I was playing, they didn't used to do that. He used to jump off and hit the ground and then jump back up, but now they just go from one to the next. And the thoroughbred as an equine athlete is the most athletic of any horse.
Right.
And most of the horses you see in polo now, there is thoroughbred blood in most all of them. And I mentioned my aunt and Topsider earlier. And, she actually gave me a 2-year-old one year. My Topsider that wasn't going to make it as a racehorse, but he was still a stallion. And I trained him. We trained him. I played him, and he got to be quite good. And as a matter of fact, I gave him to my cousin Adam to play in Florida one year, and he actually won best playing pony in one of the tournaments there. And I said to Adam, I said, "That's it. You can't have him anymore. I'm selling him." Because I got a good offer from a breeder, and he became the top polo stallion in the world, and still is one of it's the third generation now stallion. It's very influential in polo, and it's a initial son of Topsider, and one of Owen Reinhardt. He was a teammate of Adams, and when they played in the U.S. Open, I think 6 of the 8 horses that Owen played that year were by Amber Shoes was the name of the colt. And so it's neat to see as well. And all my best horses were off the racetrack. So there is a little bit of a connection, and most of the partners that I have involved now are have some polo roots, and I think the crossover is there because of the speed factor. You know, trying to get people from the show world into racing is a little bit more difficult because they don't get it.
Right.
You know, I mean, the speed factor has a lot to do with it. In Preservationist, watching him in the stretch run, it looked like a polo match. I mean, he was bumping and driving to get through that hole like Adam would, you know, going to goal for overtime. But no, there is a little bit of a connection, I'm sure.
They put a mallet in Johnny's hand instead of the crop, you know.
Yeah, it would have been good. I don't know who would have. But and it's funny because the jockeys know that I played polo, and a lot of them sometimes will say, "Well, you know, I got to come out and try that sometime." I mean, I told Jose and Irad Ortiz at the Belmont Child Care, which is, you know, I'm on the board of it,
right?
And we had the charity dinner the other night last year, and I was saying, well, showing them some pictures of me playing polo, and they're like, Jesus, you were doing that? Yeah, so it's all fun. It's all fun.
Don, it's been great catching up, and congratulations on Preservationist. That was a big win in the Woodward, a great race for him, and maybe we'll see him in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Maybe.
Well, you know, I mean, it's there. Again, we got to see how he comes out. You know, Jimmy has said in the press that, you know, we'll definitely look at it, and you know, he's really come into his own, and kudos to Jimmy and Dr. Carr, who's, you know, selects the horses for us and is our vet there, and, you know, saw the talent, knew it was there, and, you know, I relayed that to the partners, and they believed in what we had to say, and, you know, the outlook is much greater today than it was in February. Well, I look forward to that's the beauty of the business.
That's what keeps us all going, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to catching up with you again in person. It's always great to see you, and thanks for being on with me today.
My pleasure. Maybe I'll see you. I'm head to Lexington on Friday, so maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll be in Belmont this weekend. I'll be on the NBC show this weekend. Yeah, so but well,
soon. I'll be there for a week anyways. So.
Okay. Well, we'll catch up here. Okay.
All right. Great.
All right. Thank you, Don Little Jr., Centennial Farms, joining us here. More to come on the Horse Racing Show.